Hey, good morning, Zach.
Good morning, freshly shorn Jason McIntosh. Wow, you look
Man,
good.
my face is so
Man,
naked. I don't think that I got to the point where I couldn't quite tame everything. So the manliness just, I couldn't
it was
handle the
pretty
manliness.
beastly. It was
Yeah,
pretty beastly. I mean, the problem is that now you've temporarily moved onto a horse farm and you no longer have a giant beard and shaggy hairdo. So you don't look like you live on a horse farm now. That's part of my issue.
hmm
Like you're back to like you could be in a cubicle writing code in a high-rise building in Houston for all I know.
yeah.
Except it probably doesn't have wood paneling at a high-rise building in Houston.
I'm back to white collar instead of flannel collar.
Right,
It's
exactly.
been really
It's not
funny
good.
because I've gone into places where I know people and I forget that I got everything cut off, and a couple of people like introduced themselves to me because they were like, "Oh, who who is this person?" Yeah.
Hi, my name's Jason.
March 17th, happy St. Patrick's Day to you.
It is no
We
green.
call
You're pinched.
Our Ireland friends
Oh,
and
I
wish
talked to
them a
Chris about
top
it
of the
yesterday, and
morning.
they act like it's no big deal. They act like, oh yeah, they're like it's way bigger in America than it is here. Like you don't even drink green beer. He's like, no. He's like, we drink beer all the time. Like you guys are just being like us for one day.
Right, right. All right, so today, handful of things to talk about. Some interesting links coming across the way this morning. It always seems like the timing is right before our show that we get an interesting link and we can't even take time to like really get into it. But some interesting
What's your
things happening.
interesting link?
Well, the one you sent me this morning, the whole
Oh yeah,
Top
yeah, yeah,
Flag
yeah.
thing, we
Yep.
should probably mention that later today.
Yeah, we'll
So,
talk about that a little bit. Let's jump into the new center, existing center question of the week. We'll just do a quick thing on this, but again, I pull these out of what I watch on social media, on Facebook. A lot of centers I follow. I don't even know how many friends I have on Facebook, but I hide everybody. I don't use Facebook for anything personal at all. So don't reach me on Facebook for anything personal. But I follow a ton of game centers and watch what they post. And this is on my mind and my heart this week as I work with some of my stores to bring in new community managers for different games and things. But I think it's very, very important that centers work hard to stay diverse in what they offer at the stores. And what I mean by that is I see a lot of stores that open up that plan on doing a lot of different things and catering to a lot of different groups. But what happens is that one particular group will come in and start being successful, and they'll work with that group on a regular basis, and that becomes the focus, and they almost brand their center around that group. So I see this happen a lot with a lot of centers around certain games and certain age groups, certain types of customers, and it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but it really backs you into a corner for longevity and for being welcoming for other coming into your center later. So for example, I see a lot of stores that are Smash stores. They're consistently running Smash events all the time because they've reached a group of players that love Smash Brothers, whether it's the older games or the newer games. And so then they start by having a few events, and then they're having weekly events, and then they're having bi-weekly events twice a week, 3 times a week. And then it just becomes more of like, if it's not Smash, then it's not that important because only 2 or 3 or 4 people are interested in it. So just because you're not pulling in 50 people on a tournament or 50 people for a themed event, lock-in or whatever, doesn't mean you should stop working to reach those players in these other games. Another example would be like League of Legends. You know, it's some of these things are easy. And again, I feel like centers take the easy route. You know, like obviously if I do some things for League of Legends, people know that game and they'll come in all the time for it. But then the next thing you know is that Dota players come in and they just see all these players playing League of Legends and they don't feel welcome. You know, or a Counter-Strike guys show up and they're like, oh, it's just a MOBA place. You know, like that's the type of place it is. I think we really all need to work on being welcoming for a lot of different types of gamers and a lot of different types of ages. You know, this is another thing that happens with centers that open up. Their budget only allows them 20 stations and it's one room. And if you just have a bunch of old bearded guys coming in, then parents aren't going to come in and with their kids. If you have a bunch of kids running around, then none of the old bearded guys are going to come in. So, you know, again, you're kind of working yourself into a corner and only being able to focus on those things. And I know that's not good business advice. You know, like most business advisors would say, do one thing great, don't do a lot of things good. But in our case, there's not enough gamers out there to support a single type of gamer or a single type of game. You don't want to do that because down the road, games change all the time and players change all the time and players grow up and move away. Players get married or the players have kids. And if you only cater to one type of player, only to cater to one type of game, you're going to be stuck with the same people for a period of time. And then all of a sudden you're going to wake up one day and you're going to say, man, our sales have really dropped off. What's happened? Well, guess what? Your game's not that relevant. That was your most popular game before. Or, you know, that group of guys that used to come in all the time, they all graduated high school and now they're off and they went to college or they joined the Army or wherever they went. Mm-hmm. So I think this is what we're doing, but I think it's very, very important to really focus on whether you're and again, I've said this before, I don't think we should be libraries anymore. We think we should just be a place to go have access to play games. I think we should all be event centers. I think we should all be places to go for specific events around games. And I think the game library and the type of gamers should be very diverse. So we're going to focus on, you know, we've always done a great job of having $1,000 tournaments and bringing in guys from outside of the area to play. We're going to really start focusing on running events for high school players, running events for college players. I mean, a drink of water here. I'm already sapped out. But basically, we don't want to just have Halo players coming in our store because everybody's seen this. You know, Halo was big. Gears of War was big in our stores, and then those people moved on. Those games became less important. We want to do a lot of stuff for a lot of different types of people. So my advice to everybody is, it may be something that you're passionate about. Maybe that's why you're so focused on that one particular game or that one particular demographic. But bring in other staff members, bring in other volunteers, and reach out to those other communities, those other types of players, those other games. Be diverse with what you offer at your stores. Yeah. Fill that store up with different types of players every day of the week.
Yeah, you know, and at the same time, I think it's hard to create a community for a game that, you know, may be brand new or that type of thing to kind of rally that community. It takes a lot of focused work to make that happen. And I think in the past we've tried to, you know, run showcases and run tournaments for lesser known games, and I think it's a lot of the state of entertainment in general, in that a movie tends to get ruined before anybody has a chance to see it because of all Twitter reactions and Facebook reactions of people that have actually seen it, and I think that game is the same way. So even though League of Legends and Smash is easy, we know people are going to show up because that is the rallied around game on social media.
Right. I have a great example of that. So we every week have lock-ins that have 50 to 70 to 80 kids, mostly on Friday nights at our Terre Haute store, our younger kids, middle school and high school kids. We've tried to do fighting game tournaments before. We've tried to do other tournaments before. Last weekend, I literally started scheduling more staff at the store so that we could specifically run a 9 p.m. and a 1 a.m. event every Friday and every Saturday at our lock-ins. It's a contained group of players that are there just randomly playing. So last week, Dustin in our Terre Haute store said, hey, we're going to run a Mortal Kombat tournament. And so at 9 p.m. on Friday night last week, he said, we're running a Mortal Kombat tournament. If we tried to run a Mortal Kombat tournament on our own, like we said, hey, Saturday at noon is a Mortal Kombat tournament as its own event, it wouldn't have had hardly any players in it. But Dustin was able to easily get 16 players in a bracket Friday night, and they had a ton of fun playing through. And I don't even know what he gave him as a prize, you know, like a free drink or something. Like, it wasn't even about, you know, like the super serious event around Mortal Kombat. It was just something to do with the existing players were there. And he was talking about afterwards, then the players like wanted to practice and stuff and wanted to know when the next event was. So, you know, try things during your busy times, you know, like everybody's caught up on like, let's have a Tuesday night. It's a slow night. Like nobody's in the store. So let's try to do a Mortal Kombat night on Tuesday night. It's not going to work. if you start at that direction.
Yeah.
But if you start it on the days you're busy and you get players into it, then you can kind of merge over and say, hey, we're going to do an additional thing every week. On Wednesday night, it's going to be fighting game night, and it's going to be Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and Naruto and Pokken, the new Pokemon game coming out. Like, those will all be on that fighting game night. Then players will come to it because you've started it during your busy nights and kind of gotten a little bit of awareness and interest in that game. That just literally happened last weekend.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to some ggCircuit updates. Anything on the diversity? It's an old wooden ship topic. You want to talk about that at all or not? No? Okay. All right. ggCircuit updates. All right. Some pretty sizable changes coming up that we wanted to talk about. Every week, I feel like somebody calls on the phone and another opportunity, another door opens. And so just like every other week, some other opportunities have opened up for ggCircuit. And due to those opportunities, we're going to really buckle down and focus on a few topics, a few projects, and we're going to postpone Wandemonium and the start of the next season until a couple of these software pieces are done. And I don't want us to, like, it's not anything permanent at all. Like, it's literally because I don't want the development team to take their eyes off the prize on these projects that we have in front of us based on some opportunities to work with some really cool companies. So we're going to focus everything on a few key topics behind the scenes. There won't seem like anything's going on for the next couple weeks. You and I in our weekly shows, we'll be able to share a little bit each week depending on what stages we're in. But we'll start it out this week by saying we've got some major software changes coming. We've got some major awesome opportunities coming from some sponsors. And I'll just kind of let everybody know a little bit about what we're planning, but it's looking like that more and more of the things that we want to produce for centers and have centers be able to benefit from may be able to be funded by these sponsors. So I don't want to say that, hey, we're going to give you all this free stuff or everything's going to be free. But we've recognized, again, that centers don't have budgets to produce a lot of this stuff. Even though we're taking the burden of a lot of this development cost on ourselves, ggCircuit, eBash, my stores, can only afford so much money per month. Like, we couldn't build all these things on our own. And even if I put 50 centers or 100 centers together with budgets, I couldn't afford to do what some of these sponsors are coming to us to be able to help us do for centers all over the world. So my goal is to have products in the hands of centers all over the world that make their businesses stronger, that make them draw more customers into their centers, and bring more money into their centers from other sources besides the players that are handing them $4 to play for a period of time. So that's what our focus is going to shift on, and we'll be able to give updates every week on some of those bits and pieces of what that means. There are some of you that are on the inner circle that I've brought in the last couple months that are working with us on a couple projects. Again, these aren't things that we're trying to be secret about. I just don't want to say to people, hey, here's what we're doing next week. I don't want it to be a CSGO thing where for 9 months we've been working on CSGO. We're very close with CSGO. Again, I'm not going to say a date because I don't want to get people disappointed, but I can tell you that for the first time in 2 years of working on the software side of ggCircuit, there's money coming in from other sources that are going to make things happen at a much faster pace and be able to do things for centers that we've been fighting with, like, how do we pay for this? Does the center pay? Does the sponsor pay? Does the player pay? Some of those things are becoming a lot more clear in some meetings we've had the last week or so. Now, some things that we still are working on that we'll talk about right now. The new key system is in development, should be able to roll out here very quickly. Again, that is going to be prizes dumped into everybody's prize vaults are going to have keys from sponsors that players will be able to buy with coins from all over the world. Depending on what servers your centers players play on, that may affect it. So if a company comes in and they have North American servers only, I know Mark down at Australia has no problem. A lot of his players are used to playing on North American servers, so it's not a big deal. But I just want to make you aware that, it may be that something happens where there's codes that only work for North American servers and your players play on South American servers or European servers, it may not be valuable to them. But in general, a lot of these are going to be keys for free copies of games, keys for in-game incentives, keys to get into a game early for beta access. There may be keys that are available for centers to add licenses for their store to play games there that may have nothing to do with the prize vault. So some of that key system is going to be pretty cool. That's something we can talk about. That's something that's very public. We can talk about now. It's already paid for. It's already in progress. You know, it's going to be rolling out here soon. Another thing, J-Mac, I'm going to have you talk about this for a little bit, but we've really jumped into some social media integration things that we're working on live right now. Again, it has nothing to do with cost for centers. We don't think. We're hoping that it's going to be something that's paid for by some sponsors, but give us a breakdown a little bit about what you're working on with that.
Yeah, so this has been something that I've been wanting to kind of hunker down and really work on. So now I've been able to take a little bit of time and just kind of step back and look at this. And I liken this with my struggles at eBash. So it's a very real world thing that I have a problem with. And I would bet a lot of centers have the same problem. We don't have a social media person. And if you've worked at all with social media, it can be a full day's job in itself. So
to do it right,
to stay consistent, to stay updated, to promote events early enough, you know, all that stuff. And we've gone.
I mean, do you see, just real quick, do you see like what I see when you watch other centers? Do you follow a lot of other centers?
I do,
on Facebook?
I do, but I mean, it's just like eBash. I see some consistency for a while, then I see them fall off, and I may see one post from them a month. And it's just the nature of the beast. It's very hard to do. So anyway,
can you tell though by the posts who spent? Like, I'm trying to drill down like your idea of none of us have a social media director or somebody in charge of it, but you can tell when someone has spent some time with their social media posts and when they're connected with that for a period of time, like you said. Like in our case, it's Dustin a lot of times. Like you can see when Dustin's fired up and he's consistent with his posts for a while, but then they'll go 4 or 5 days and we won't see anything.
Right.
Like it's not his full-time job.
Right. So
yeah.
The ideas that I'm putting together for ggCircuit are a handful of different ideas. One, we want to be able to grab data statistics and create sort of pre-made posts, but implementing usernames and their data amounts and stats and that kind of stuff to potentially create automated posts for ggCircuit that also tag the centers and or the players if that data is available in their profiles. Secondly, we want to provide ways for when players see information that they can retweet it, send it to Facebook, whatever, and that could come in the form of something like a share this plugin. If you're familiar with that, there's multiple types of plugins. Third would be to create much like the slider, like the slider, what I want to create within the ggCircuit admin is a way for a center to go in and select a time frame and maybe even a date range that they choose. And when they submit that date range, it provides them a social media report. And that report would be filled with text statuses, pre-made dynamic images that enter their player and statistic information in multiple different topics. But they would be provided a report that they could utilize in an email blast, that they could utilize on any types of social media, all customized for their store, for their players. And then finally, I'm working on a utilization of a service called both If This Then That and a service called Zapier, which automates the process of doing one thing and spreading it out to multiple social media channels. So let's say you provide post on your website if you use WordPress or something like that. It'll take that WordPress post, post it on your Facebook page, post it on your Twitter page, post it on Pinterest, that kind of stuff. So instead of having to post 4 different things, post one thing and it goes 4 places. So it's a very mishmash of ideas. I'm creating a big report, doing all kinds of nerdy flow charts and information and that kind of stuff, but it's where we want to go, again, to not only help ggCircuit social media, but to also help each individual center provide information to their players that doesn't take them a lot of time to put together.
Yeah, and so and a real world example of this would be like if I put my eBash hat on. Like ideally for me, for eBash as a ggCircuit customer, I would like to be able to go in and say inside the ggCircuit dashboard, like the day that I need some help on social media, let's just say Facebook, is every Tuesday and every Friday, and be able to select from a group of data points or a group of windows or tables of data that I think are relevant to eBash. So it's maybe on Tuesday, I want to show the top 10 gamers from last week at my store. I want to show the top 10 League of Legends players because that's a popular game. And I want to show the top prize or the top 5 valued prizes redeemed in the store the last week and congratulate those players on those prizes. So I say to the system, Tuesdays, every Tuesday until I tell you to stop, post this on my page. Obviously, we'll have to do the integration with Facebook where I give it permission to post for me on my page, but then I just set it and forget it. So every Tuesday, I know on social media at 3 p.m., it's going to post this summary of my previous week's stats for eBash. And then maybe on Friday, I do a post of like the last weekend's tournaments from, you know, that we held on the weekend or whatever. So to me, that's the value for eBash, is taking that workload off of my non-existent social media director and putting that as ggCircuit software being my social media director with my guidance. This is all this stuff is what I want to show. And then as we integrate more platforms, you know, okay, this on Tuesday on Facebook, this on Wednesday on Twitter, this on Thursday on Instagram, maybe it's the same thing and we just spread it out.
Yeah.
Your dogs like that idea.
Yeah, the dogs love it.
I mean, obviously I've got their support.
Shoot, I had a point and I totally lost it. Dang it.
So anyway, so that process for social media, again, and as another point, is like JMac is now zeroed in and focused on that to get that thing rolled out in the next couple weeks, instead of us sitting down and planning on, you know, hey, what are we going to do for the next season? How's the next Wandemonium going to run? And all of those things. So that's another example of things that we're working on behind the scenes that is a reason why we're stepping back from a couple other things. I mean, Michael Winger from the Gamers Funk has asked for some sort of email or social media support or integration forever. You know, he's asked, you know, to have something be available to him, you know, and we've told him and promised him for a long time, and it's just not happened.
Yeah, yeah. So I think
so if it doesn't happen now, it's JMac's fault.
Yeah, I think it'll be some good stuff, and hopefully centers are interested in having that be less of a part of their daily workload. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's just wrap it up here with the quick tip of the week, unless you've got anything else, JMac, that you want to cover this week.
Nope, ready to move on.
Okay. All right. So the quick tip of the week, and this is, again, pulled right from my day-to-day life. So, you know, if you don't like what I do for a living or what I do every day, then obviously you probably don't even watch this show. But my tip of the week is spend time working at your store. And, you know, we've been in business for almost 12 years. And the very beginning, obviously, I worked at the store all the time. ggCircuit and some other projects have taken me away from working at the store. And I always make an excuse, I don't have time. But the past few weeks, we're implementing some new tracking and metrics in our stores. And so I've started working at the counter again the last couple weeks. And I can tell you that don't lose sight of the ball in everything that you do for your store by thinking that you don't have time to work at your store. And I don't care. I don't want to hear an excuse from anybody like, oh, well, I have a manager that works there or whatever. You know, you've got time to go spend a few hours working at the store, and it really gives you insights behind the scenes for things that you may have lost track of when running and managing and guiding your business moving forward. So I have managers at the stores. They work all the time. I haven't worked at the counter in probably 6 months to a year before this past couple weeks. And I'm just taking a couple shifts during the week, on slow days where I can do some emails and things, but interacting with the customers, seeing what things work, what things don't work, seeing areas of the store that need some focus. Like, you don't see that until you're physically there with the customer and you're walking them out or you're helping them get set up. Like, it's just things that you don't see. So don't ever stop working at your store. And even if you're not the regular day-to-day or you can't find time to get there during the week, go work a shift on the weekend. Be there, talk to the parents, talk to the players, talk about what they want. We're all business owners and we see things in different light than our staff sees them. And so I encourage everybody, as a tip of the week, is that if you always found yourself not making time to get to the store and work at the counter, don't just sit in your office or sit in the back and think that's working at your store. Yeah. Literally go out, run the counter, sell a couple Mountain Dews, help some players get set up with games, talk to the people, find out what's going on, stay on top of what's going on at your store by working at the counter. The last 2 weeks, my eyes have opened up. I've been inspired for some new projects and things, and it's just stuff that you don't see when you're not out there in the trenches.
Right. As much as we want to be hands off and work remotely and trust our employees, we still need to know firsthand what's going on. Yeah, makes total sense.
Right, and even I think that's true with any business. I think if you run a restaurant, like if you're never in the restaurant, in there, and again, you could go dine there and you still don't see what's going on behind the scenes. So it's just me. If I'm a restaurant owner, even if I own 10 restaurants, I would try to make sure. It's almost like what's the TV show where they go undercover boss? Like I feel like that show's interesting because these bosses go in there and they don't really have an idea. Like they're looking at spreadsheets and they're seeing this data come to them at the boardroom, but they have no idea what goes on a day-to-day basis in their own stores and their company.
Yeah,
I think that's a super important part of being really connected and making good business decisions.
Before we head out, I wanted to talk about one other thing that we saw this morning come through. What was it?
Yep.
Gamesindustry.biz?
Yeah, it's just a website that I watched that pulls industry news stories in. And so there was an article about Microsoft partnering with ESL and Faceit, which Faceit does a lot of the same stuff ggCircuit does, but online. Mm-hmm. And again, it wasn't a lot of details in that article, but I was super excited about it because ESL and Faceit both recently have had a lot of funding for expansion and working on other projects. And then we see immediate ties in now with this deal with Xbox. So according to the article, ESL and Faceit are working with Microsoft to provide esports options inside of Xbox's network for game developers to offer tournaments. And I would assume it's more of like a software, like a bracketing system. Mm-hmm. So if one of these smaller developers releases a game and they want an esports side to it, they can partner with these companies and offer players to be able to queue up to join brackets, to play in tournaments and things for their esports games. Obviously, the other big headline news item right now is Rocket League being expanded across multiple platforms so that potentially a PlayStation player, an Xbox player, and a PC player could all be in the same match at the same time. It's never happened, but that's on the table as a possibility now. So if you think about that, and the side of esports being that it's not just about going to arenas and playing for $75,000. Like guys at home want to join an esports league on Tuesday nights. That's a little more serious than just joining ranked matches with who knows who around the world. Like, let me form a team, let my team join a league or a tournament bracket. I think it's super, super exciting news.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, it's right in our wheelhouse. It's right where we're
that's what I was going to ask. What is the effect of this announcement for ggCircuit potentially?
Right. Well, first thing I did this morning after I saw it was I sent my buddy Jerry at PlayStation a message and said, hey, this is what they're doing. This is what we're doing. It's very similar. We need our software to be that for the PlayStation Network. Mm-hmm. It's probably not going to happen, but that's what popped into my head right away is like, okay, what's Sony going to do to make esports some sort of esports platform available for their players on their network. As much as I think Rocket League cross-platform play can happen. I think that can happen. But the big companies are not going to all agree to work on a similar platform for something that has to do with they're just not going to do it. Like, ESL is not going to be able to go to PlayStation and to Xbox and to Steam and to Ubisoft and to EA. Like, they're not going to be able to merge all of those systems into one neutral competing platform. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. I mean, that would be like saying the NBA and the NFL and Major League Baseball and the FIFA World Organization of Soccer all joined together on one unified tournament platform. Like, it doesn't even make sense, like I don't even know how that would logistically happen, so players just don't do that in the real world, like it's specific to usually one game. And so I don't know. I mean, I think maybe it could happen, but I think for ggCircuit and for LAN Centers, again, we're rebuilding our Terre Haute store, and then eventually we'll do it to our Indianapolis store. We're going to become an esports arena. Like, to me, that's the future. Guys will disagree with me. I'd love to have somebody come on the show with me one week and play point and counterpoint with me of why. Like, I'd love to have some other LAN Center owner tell me, okay, in 10 years, if there's going to be 50,000 LAN Centers around the world, what are they going to be doing if it's not esports related? Yeah. Like, I don't think there's anything out there. Like, it's becoming more and more commonplace to have all of these kind of things in people's homes. Like, they're not going to keep flipping going to your game center every week just so they can sit next to their buddies, like, unless you give them something they can't get at home. Yeah. And to me, that's what esports is. We're spending tens of thousands of dollars on redoing the inside of our stores. I don't know if you guys have seen those pictures, but we're basically turning our store into an esports arena. We're still going to do hourly play. We're still going to have birthday parties. We're going to add in probably some board and card gaming in some of the rooms. But like, you're going to walk in the store and you're going to think like, this is just kick butt. This is an esports arena. This is where competitions take place. Yeah. And it's going to be high school versus high school. It's not going to be not inviting Cloud9 to fly into my store in Terre Haute to compete for $25,000. I'm trying to put what those players are experiencing on a national level at the local level for the high school and local college players, for the casual players at home, for the dads that want to go play in something besides just sitting in their chair and playing Call of Duty all weekend with the other dads from around the Xbox Live network. That's what I want to do. Yeah. And I think that's where LAN Centers have a chance to get their foot in the door with these big companies. I don't know if other people like dealing in thousands of dollars a month. I like some of these contracts I see being announced that have the M word next to them. Like, that's my favorite word. I'm ready to do a deal that has the M word next to it. So once we do one of those deals like these Facets and ESLs and these companies, then we know we've made it, as a LAN Center group.
I think that's something we've talked about in the past, but I think we should really try to work hard maybe for next week's show to get one of these owners on that we talk to a lot. I don't think it'd be that hard to do. I think they'd be willing to come in, talk about their center, talk about issues going on with them. I think we are very biased because we're with eBash, but I think it's going to be good for anybody that watches the show to have some other ideas coming through from other centers. So we need to work on that.
Yeah, and there's some new ones that are getting started up that I'd love to have on the show because, again, they're facing things that we haven't faced in 11 or 12 years. Yeah. Like, they're going through that learning curve, and what are their pressure points? Where can we help them? What can we advise them with? What contacts can we give them in the industry? Like, where are they struggling to get started from? Mm-hmm. And, I have a lot of people say that to me all the time. Like, it's easy for you to say you've been there for 10 years. Yeah. And again, I'm telling you, I try to say this most of the time, like, do as I say, not as I do, because my stores, always crutch back on the fact that we've been here forever. Like, my staff gets away with such mediocrity in customer service because people have just come here forever and everybody knows us. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not an excuse at all, and it makes me furious when I think about it, So new centers don't have that luxury, so they work harder and they have a better environment and they have a lot of other things going on that we don't do very well at eBash.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next week, and thanks, my friend. See ya.
Bye, babyface. We'll see you.